Hey, anyone who's watching, this is the second part of the review. So law of sines, law of cosines, and area stuff. So I have all the formulas on top, and I'll keep it on top as we go through each of these. So number 7, we are finding the missing part of the triangle. So when I do these problems, I always start by drawing a triangle. It does not have to be perfect. Any triangle will do. And we'll give it some angles, A, B, and C. And then remember the sides kind of correspond to the angles. Each side is across from its angle. So little a is across from big A, little b is across from big B, and little c is across from big C. And then we can fill in our missing information. So angle B is 98 degrees, and angle A is 39 degrees, and little a is 18, and we are supposed to find little b. So we are trying to find this side here. So we always want to check and see if we can use law of sines. If we can use law of sines, that's the best place to start. So we are looking to see if we have things that are across from each other. And in this case, we have an angle and a side across from each other. And then we have an angle and the side we are looking for across from each other. So that's good news. That means we can use law of sines. So to do that, we're just going to do sine of 98 over b is equal to the sine of 39 over 18. And we could have done sine of 39 over 18 equals sine of 98 over b. The order doesn't really matter there. Then what we're going to do is multiply across this way and multiply across this way. So we're going to have b times sine of 39 is equal to 18 times sine of 98. And then to solve for b, right now it's being multiplied by the sine of 39, so we need to divide both sides by the sine of 39. And then in our calculators, we want to type in that whole thing there. So 18 times sine of 98 divided by sine of 39. To do that, first, if you're using the TI calculator, you're going to want to make sure that you're in the right mode. Well, regardless of which calculator you're using, you want to be in the right mode, so I'm going to turn it into degrees. And then to get a fraction to pull up on the TI calculator, you can hit alpha, y equals enter. So green button, y equals enter. That will pull up your fraction. And then you are just typing in 18 times sine of 98, arrow down, divided by sine 39, and you end up with approximately 28.3. For number 8, once again, I'm going to draw a triangle. Doesn't need to be anything perfect. Fill in the information you know. So they're giving us angle A, they're giving us little c, and they're giving us little a, and they're asking us to find angle C, this angle here. So see if you have some things across from each other. You can use law of sines. Looks like we have those guys across from each other. And then since we're looking for C, if we're going to use the law of sines, we need the side across from angle C. And in this case, we do have it. So from there, we're going to set up our ratios, our proportion. So we can do sine of 48 over 18 equals sine of C over 8. Multiply crossways. So 18 times sine of C equals 8 times sine of 48. We want to solve for C, so we have a little bit of work to do. First thing we should do is get rid of the times 18. So divide by 18 on both sides. That will leave us with sine of C is equal to 8 times sine of 48 over 18. And then the last step is to get rid of the sine. So to get rid of that sine, we need to take the inverse sine of both sides. And you're going to use that inverse thing pretty much every time you're solving for an angle at one point or another. If you're asked to find an angle, you're probably going to have to use some inverse trig. Okay, so what I would do is I would just punch that whole thing into your calculator all at once. That will avoid rounding errors and avoid you having to write down any more than you want to. So go into your calculator to get the fraction. Actually, we're going to do the inverse sign first. So second sign, and then we want that fraction. So alpha y equals enter, and then just type in all of that stuff that we had. So 8 times sine of 48. Arrow down. Oh, I got something. Oh no, maybe I'm good. And then over, what was it, 18. And you don't even have to close your parentheses. You can just hit enter, and you're going to get approximately 19.3 if we're rounding to the nearest tenth. And that should be in degrees. Next problem, number 9. Draw a triangle. This time we have angle B is 105 degrees, little a is 5, little c is 10. Now I've done enough of these problems to know that law of sines is not going to work on this one. If you ever have side angle side, like you do here, law of sines is not going to work. We're trying to find little b over here. So we do have the angle across from it. That's good. But we would need either angle A or angle C to make the law of sines work. So law of sines is not going to work. This is going to end up being a law of cosines problem. So when I get law of cosine problems, I like to really make sure that I label everything to keep it all straight. So we'll call that one little a since it's across from big A, and we'll call that one little c since it's across from big C. And then we're looking for b, so we want to use this formula here, okay? So you are setting it up as b squared equals, and then it's just a whole bunch of substituting stuff in. So a squared plus c squared, so 5 squared plus 10 squared. Then minus 2ac, so minus 2 times 5 times 10 times the cosine of big B, which is 105. Okay? Then what I usually do is I usually just crunch all of this stuff here into the calculator. Everything on the right side. 5 squared plus 10 squared minus 2 times 5 times 10 times cosine of 105. Punch all of that into your calculator. I guess I can do that as long as we need to do it anyway. So 5 squared 10 squared minus 2 times 5 times 10 times cosine of 105. Okay, you can get that in your calculator. So approximately 150.88. Now, the biggest problem that students make on problems like this is they think they're done and they write that down as their answer. But you need to take the square root still. You still have that squared up there. You haven't quite solved for b yet. So I'm just going to put 150.88 in here. So in order to finish up the problem, we need to take the square root of both sides. I would just, in my calculator, hit square root and then second answer. So second square root, second answer, which is the negative key. That'll put your old answer back in there, and you'll get a good answer that hasn't had any rounding errors, hopefully. So 12.3 is your area. And since it's area, sorry, not area, what am I talking about? Not area, just B. 12.3 units. We're getting to area next, after this next one. All right, number 10. Making lots of triangles. A, B, and C. Little a is 18, little b is 10, and little c is 25, and we're supposed to find angle C here. Okay, once again, once you get used to these, you kind of start to realize what works for law of sines and what doesn't. If you have all three sides and no angles, we don't have a single angle up here, law of sines is not going to work. So this is going to end up being a law of cosines problem. So then what you're going to want to do is find the one that has cosine of c in it, the one that has a big C in it. So it's going to be this third one. And you're just going to substitute everything in. So I'm going to label these for myself once again, makes it a little easier. And we're going to just substitute a bunch of stuff in. So 25 squared equals 18 squared plus 10 squared minus 2 times a times b. So 18 times 10 times cosine of cosine of c is the one we're finding. So that's where our variable is. When you're doing law of cosines or law of sines, you should only have one variable in your problem. So double check and make sure that you have numbers everywhere else except for in that one spot. Okay. From there, you're just going to kind of simplify your number stuff. So 25 squared is 625. 18 squared plus 10 squared is 424. And then you're going to have minus 2 times 18 times 10. I did that chunk next. That's 360 times cosine of c. Okay. Now the biggest mistake people make here is they're like, oh yeah, 424 minus 360. I should do that. No. That negative 360 is being multiplied by cosine of c. So do not mess with that just yet. Your next step is to just subtract the 424 from both sides. Okay, so 625 minus 424 is 201. And that's equal to negative 360 times cosine of c. Okay, now we're getting closer to getting that c by itself. We need to do the opposite of multiply by negative 360, which is to divide by negative 360 on both sides. And I'm probably going to jump on the calculator at this point. So 201 divided by negative 360. 201 divided by 360 is that number there. So it should be a negative. Sorry. Negative 360. There we go. So we're going to get about negative 0.558. Okay, and then remember what I said earlier, if you're going to solve for an angle, you are going to end up using some inverse trick. So we need to take the inverse cosine of both sides to get that c by itself. Try to just leave that number in your calculator so that you don't get rounding errors. So at this point, you're just going to hit second cosine and then second answer. We'll put that last answer right back in there for you. And then you're going to end up with 123.9 degrees. And then finally onto the last page, number 11 and 11, 12, and 13, we're finding the area of each of these. So we're going to be looking down here in our formula. So we're using K for area. K stands for area. Okay? So given triangle ABC, C is 92 degrees, B is 45 degrees, and little c is 32, we need to find the area. Okay? So I always tell students if you're gonna use this formula here, you need side angle side. Okay, so we don't have side angle side, we have side angle angle. So you can do this problem one of two ways. You can either find this missing side over here, that little a, so that you have side angle side, or you can use this formula here. If you're using that formula there, totally fine. Just make sure you're careful with where you are putting things. Okay, so I'm going to label the sides here. So we are actually kind of have everything in the right spot. So angle C is the one we have, and side C is the one that we're given. So that's good. We don't really need to manipulate our formula at all. You might not always be given side C, so then maybe you want to rename your triangle so that it kind of matches your formula here, but we can use it the way it is. At that point, we need this angle here. To use this formula, we need angle A, angle B, and angle C. So I just did 180 minus 92 minus 45, and that gives us 43 degrees here. Okay? Then we just substitute things in. So K equals 1/2 times C squared, 32 squared, times sine of A times sine of B. So sine of 43 times sine of 45 all over the sine of 92. And then you can just crunch that into a calculator. So I'll just show you that in case you're having any issues typing stuff in. So you're going to start with 1/2 or just 0.5 will work just fine. Times 32 squared, I would probably just throw that in parentheses, times, now I would set up a fraction, alpha y equals enter, and then you're going to do sine of 43 times sine of 45 divided by sine of 92, and you get 247.1. And this is area, so it should be units squared or u squared. Or square units, however you want to phrase that. Number 12. Number 12, we have A, B, C, A, B, and C. And all we're given on this one are the sides. So we're given 7, and 5, and 4. When that's the case, if you look through your area formulas, this one's going to need all 3 angles. This one is going to need 1 angle. We have no angles. So if we have no angles, we're going to have to use this one, which also means we're going to end up having to use that one there. So first thing we need to do is figure out what that little s is. That little s is a pretty simple formula. It's just 1/2. And then multiply that by all the sum of all 3 sides. So 7 plus 5 plus 4. So 7 plus 5 plus 4 is going to give us 16. Half of that is 8. So we're going to get s equals 8. Then we're going to jump over to this formula. K is equal to the square root of 8 times 8 minus 7. Just substituting in our numbers, times 8 minus b, which is 5, times 8 minus c, which is 4. So just punch that into a calculator. Hit your square root button, make sure you punch it in carefully, and you're going to get 9.8 units squared. And then the last area problem, this is probably the easiest question on this whole entire review. Save the easiest for last, that's kind of nice. So your A, B, and C, A is 22 degrees, little b is 5, and little c is 9. So that's what I was saying earlier if you were watching the whole video. If you can get side angle side, this formula is super easy, okay? So even though our stuff isn't really labeled right, so we would have to change our C to A, and then we would have to change these guys here to what? C and B. Just kind of flip things around in there. Same thing, formula still works. We could have renamed the triangle too. But if you have side angle side, just do 1/2 times one side times your other side times the sine of the included angle, the angle in between those 2 sides. So if you punch that in a calculator, you are going to end up with 8.4 units squared. All right, hopefully that helps. Let your teachers know if you have any additional questions on any of this.